Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's had a great week out there as we're about to head off into our new weekend. Thankfully, it's not going to be as active as the last weekend. We had all the severe weather, if you remember. I'm sure most do. But there is some things to talk about, and that's what we're here to do. We're going to speak on today's forecast. We'll talk about what could unfold later on this afternoon, what's going on right now. We do have a risk of some strong to severe storms across areas of the southeast as a pesky upper level low continues to spin around. This will also bring some wet snow, even accumulating wet snow across areas of New England. Some of those higher hilly regions, elevated regions, we'll speak on that. We'll have a segment for that for you folks in the Northeast. And then we'll talk about the rest of the country also, but elsewhere, like the middle of the country, the western U.S., not a whole lot going on, but of course, I'm not going to leave you hanging. After we get done doing that, we'll speak a little bit on what's coming up over the next 2, 3, 4 days. A little bit about tomorrow. There is a small severe weather risk across the high plains. Not a big deal at all, but they do have a slight risk level, a 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather already for day 4. So we'll speak a little bit on that. That's for the Ohio Valley. I don't think this will be a big deal. I think it'll be similar to what we've been dealing with over the last couple of days across areas of the South. But we'll speak on it, and then we'll have a long-range discussion. We're not going to get, super detailed on that, not spend like 15 minutes or anything, but I just want to kind of speak on what's to come, how we are entering. I think we already pretty much are in kind of a calmer period compared to what we've been dealing with lately, but how long will it remain relatively calm? So we'll speak on that. I do think things will uptick as we get to the end of this month. And there's already some things showing up in long-range model guidance like the Euro Ensemble kind of reflecting that. So we'll speak on that. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below, and I will have a devotion at the end of the video if you want to stay tuned if you're interested in that. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is what's going on right now across the country. We continue to have that upper level low, like I mentioned. This continues to just bring pesky showers. In fact, I mean, in most areas, this is welcomed rain. We had a good bit of rain last night here at my house in central South Carolina. We actually had a line of storms. It's funny, I woke up right when the line of storms was hitting. So it's always neat to kind of wake up to just some low rumbling of thunder in the middle of the night. Just, occasional flashes of lightning. I don't know. I always enjoy that. Of course, you don't want no crazy severe weather overnight, but, I've always thought that was kind of pleasant. So, but we do got some rain kind of spinning around across areas of the southern and central Appalachian Mountains. We got rain. Now, some of this is falling as snow. I did forget to pull up the winter mask to reflect what's falling as snow. Some of this is snow up here, some wet snowflakes, but just showing up in green as in precipitation for now. So we continue just to have precipitation across areas of the eastern U.S. because of this upper level low spinning around. Middle of the country, bone dry, pretty quiet. In fact, a little bit of some fire danger across the middle of the country today, some red flag warnings up. We'll talk about that here in a second. And just a little bit of shower activity across the western U.S. Watches, warnings, and advisories. There are those red flag warnings in the hot pink color you see in those counties across multiple states, areas of the southwest, southern plains, and the high plains also, Montana, North Dakota. A good chunk of the state is under red flag warnings. But something new is that we have red flag warnings across central areas of Florida also. Winds will be whipping today because of the flow at the southern base of this upper level low. Hopefully we can get some rain in these areas. We have some dense fog out here across areas of western Virginia, western North Carolina. We have freeze warnings ongoing across areas of the Ohio Valley and the Midwest. And we have some winter weather advisories for some of this wet snow across areas of the Catskills and Berkshires of New England. So this is watches, warnings, advisories, and all that. Now, there is a severe weather risk today. Marginal risk, no slight risk. It could upgrade, but I don't expect it to. Doesn't mean it won't. But a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. We did have a lot of hail yesterday. We had storms. I think the HRRR model did a really good job of pinpointing where those storms would be yesterday, and certainly had some rocky weather across areas of the Mid-South, but I don't think it'll be as bad as yesterday. Yesterday wasn't terrible, of course, but there was definitely some strong storms. But northern Florida, marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. This goes up through the Georgia coastline. It includes all the Carolina coastline, points inland a little bit further inland. Once you get into North Carolina, it goes all the way up through Raleigh. Zoom into a couple of these areas: Raleigh, Goldsboro, Fayetteville, Florence, Myrtle Beach, down to Charleston, all the Outer Banks, up to the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, and stops well south of Richmond. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. There is a 2% risk of a tornado in this area of North Carolina, and I think this is kind of a mixture of what could happen about midday today and a little bit of what could happen later this evening. But I mean, there's a 2% risk of a tornado. Wind threat. I think yesterday, I want to mention this. I think yesterday is a good example of that we can still get a tornado even if it's below a 2% risk. I think in Indiana they had an observed tornado that happened yesterday. So wasn't, a huge tornado, but still. Wind threat, 5% risk of damaging winds. And then the hail threat, there's a 5% risk of that also. So if we do get an upgrade, I think it would be for hail, but I don't expect one. So excessive rainfall outlook, just a marginal risk here in areas of the Delmarva down to the upper southeast portion of the country. So not a big deal with that. So let's speak a little bit on this severe weather potential across the southeast today. We'll take a broad look first just to include everybody. As the upper low continues to spin around, we'll have this area of storms in northeast North Carolina. Then we'll have another round that pivots through. Now we can continue to get some showers and storms back across the mid-south, like northern Alabama, kind of the same areas that saw it yesterday, the Cumberland Plateau, southern counties of Middle Tennessee. Maybe even some showers as far west as like Birmingham, and then we'll get the storms across northern Florida. But I just really want to kind of zoom into areas of the Carolinas, Virginia. So this is this is around 8 a.m. this morning. So here over the next hour or so, we'll continue to move forward here. Now, this is about 1 p.m. I want to watch some storms that will try to mature, get stronger right as they exit the Atlantic coastline. So these storms could produce a quick spin up if you live in far eastern North Carolina, more so a blob of heavy rain up here in Richmond, and just, eastern areas of Virginia up through the Tidewater and Delaware, just more so heavy rain. But kind of two things happening. More energy kind of around this upper low across the southern central Appalachian Mountains in the form of some storms. We actually could get some hail with this, and we could get some snow in the higher elevations. In fact, the peak of Mount Mitchell, which is over 6,000 feet tall, was getting some snowflakes yesterday. So it's definitely possible. These upper lows bring their own cold air. So, they're very dynamic. Their upper lows they call upper lows are a weatherman's woes. So they're pretty hard to figure out. They can bring all kinds of weather. But anyways, this early day kind of round of storms will exit. Then more energy will pivot down. You can see how the flow is kind of like going like this, and then it's wrapping around like that. So some storms could begin to make their way back through western areas of Virginia. Heck, even West Virginia could get some of the western Carolinas. And like I said, this could produce some hail. Don't be surprised you get some small pea-sized hail out there, and then they'll pivot or back around through the same areas that get hit earlier in the day, but I think they will weaken. So not a huge day, but did want to mention it. Don't let this catch you by surprise today if you get some small hail. And same thing with northern Florida. You're a little bit further away from the low, but certainly could get some small hail with these. Gainesville, Jacksonville, Perry, anybody in between in northern Florida could get a strong to severe storm this afternoon to this evening. And this could make it eventually all the way to these areas that have the red flag warnings. Hopefully it does, because we need some rain down here in central Florida. It can be very dry this time of the year here in Florida, but not a big deal. But did want to mention it. The Northeast, listen, this is a little tricky event. Some short-range models have been going ham with the snowfall in certain areas of southern New England. But this morning we got some rain, we got some snow out there. It just depends on where you live. I think things will dry out a little bit, and then it'll get reinforced later this evening. So we get this upper low that begins to kind of get more precipitation with it. And depending on where you live, I've said this in yesterday morning's video, 500, 1,000 feet make a huge difference. If your neighbor's on down the hill and you're on up the hill, you could be puking wet snow, but your buddy 500, 600 feet down the road and lower in elevation, it could just be a cold rain. That's just how these setups can be. But you can see, it's pinpointing the Catskills, the Poconos, the Berkshires. You see how you got the blue instead of the green? It tells you that we got snow falling instead of rain, and I think that'll be possible today. And then we get tonight, and then we get into tomorrow morning, and then I think we could just have rounds of, moderate to heavy wet snow flying around across areas of the Berkshires, even the Worcester Hills, the green and white mountains, the Poconos, the Catskills. Definitely some wet snow flying around. So some of this could be heavy. I mean, this is tomorrow morning. Look how heavy the snow is falling in areas of Connecticut. I mean, it even shows it switching from rain to heavy wet snow in Boston. It is possible tomorrow that Boston can get snow. And then some of that precipitation will make it all the way up to Maine. And you're probably wondering, well, why is it just raining up in northern Maine and it's snowing further to the south? Well, there's not really any cold air. It's not a true cold air source with this. So there's no linkage of cold to the north. So this upper low is literally bringing its own cold air, pocket of cold air aloft. So the closer you are to that pocket of cold air aloft, the better chance you have for the dynamics to really work in and for you to switch from maybe heavy rain to heavy wet snow. My boy Rocket back there knocked out. Now, Rocket kind of snores when he sleeps. That's my cat. I think most people know. He's even laying kind of weird. Yeah, he's all right. He is just passed out. He's tired. But anyways, continue to move forward here. Southern New England, a couple inches of snow is possible between now and the weekend, basically, in the Berkshires, even a little bit in the Worcester Hills. The valley in between, probably not as much, but Fitchburg, you get 1 to 3 inches of wet snow. And listen, even though Boston, these areas aren't showing any, you could switch to some heavy wet snow and all of a sudden get some slushy accumulation. But I mean, that dark blue, guys, I mean, that's 3 to 4 inches of snow. So don't let this catch you by surprise. Albany, maybe a slushy inch, but you can tell how it's elevation driven. You live a 500 to 1,000 feet up higher, a couple inches of snow is possible. Robin in southern Vermont, you can get a couple inches of wet snow. Let me know what you end up getting. Send me some pictures, Robin. You're always great with doing that. But definitely just some wet snow across this area, not a whole lot. And we go a little bit further up the road and not as much. The further north you get, not as much precipitation, not as better of a cold pocket of aloft of air. But definitely could get an inch or so of wet snow, just depending on your elevation and how much precipitation you get. And then, New Hampshire, a couple inches of snow, depending on your location. Manchester, Keene going for about an inch. But some areas in this shade of yellow could get over a half a foot of wet snow, guys. This will be wet like concrete snow. It'll be definitely like that. But anyways, moving to the south central U.S., we'll be able to breeze through this very quick because there's not anything to talk about. We get into this afternoon, we get into this evening. We get to the overnight hours all the way to tomorrow, and it's dry as a bone. Continue to enjoy your nice, pleasant spring weather. And then the upper Midwest, north central U.S., it's the same thing. Beautiful weather, nothing to speak on at all. So enjoy it. Just nothing going on. In the western U.S., it's pretty quiet also. We are going to watch a storm that's going to enter the Pacific Northwest and western Canada later this weekend. And this will definitely get the precipitation going a little bit more. But you do see rounds of precipitation up here in Idaho, Montana. But it doesn't really look like a big system at all. Now, temperatures, you can quite literally see where this upper level low is in response to the temperatures you see on your screen. You see the greens. This is cooler temperatures. And listen, if this area of lower pressure wasn't over this area, then we would probably have temperatures in the 60s and 70s all the way up to the Ohio Valley. But because of this lower pressure overhead, pivoting around, we're going to have cooler temperatures. But as soon as you get away from the cloud cover from this, then you immediately start to warm up. And in fact, once the sun comes up, you'll be able to get a really good satellite representation of the cloud cover from the upper level low once the sun comes up. It's not up for most people right now, but in fact, it's interesting. I kind of want to look at it on the fly. Let's see if we can really see a good example of this. Let's look at water vapor loop. You see how this thing's spinning just like this? That's your upper level low, just spinning around. When the sun comes up, I think it'll show it better. It's not up yet, but you can see just a nice spin ongoing. So you can see how the ridge is spiking across the western U.S. and the flows on top. And in response, because you have a ridge dominating the western U.S., you have really warm high temperatures today. 80s all the way up to the northern plains of Montana, the Dakotas, Wyoming. Beautiful day up here, 70s, 80s. I mean, downright hot across the southwest. The valley of California will be nice also. So Do want to speak a little bit on temperatures. I'm sorry, severe weather. We'll get the temperatures here in a second. There is a chance of strong to severe storms across the northern high plains tomorrow. Right here where South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana kind of connect, level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So, we're not quite the severe weather season up here. We got to get deeper into the year. Really so May and June, heck, even July. But there is a risk of some severe weather. If you live in Rapid City, Gillette, Sheridan, Spearfish, these areas, risk of severe weather up here in this region tomorrow. But skip ahead a couple days. So that was Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So this is Monday. They already have a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather, a slight risk. This includes some higher populated areas, Pittsburgh, Columbus, down to Charleston, West Virginia, Lexington, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Louisville. So some of those same areas that were impacted a week or so ago. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So right now, the Storm Prediction Center just mentions another trough that digs down, and that damaging winds looks to be the primary threat with this. I don't expect this to be a tornado outbreak, but I do think there will be a risk of tornadoes. But I don't think this is anything to overly worry about. And really what's driving this is starting off tomorrow. So this is our lower pressure, kind of our upper trough, upper level lows spinning around. And it's just sort of trapped up under a ridge that's on top of it up in Canada. So as we're getting into tomorrow evening, the little bit of flow at the base of this this little area of flow. My cat's tripping me out, guys. He is knocked out. The flow at the bottom base of this lower pressure is going like this. So this will bring just enough kinematics, wind energy to get some storms going, and just due to the fact that you have warmer temperatures, thermodynamics, higher surface temperatures, this will be enough thermodynamic energy mixed with a little bit of flow at the bottom of this area of lower pressure to get a little bit of severe weather going in that area that I just talked about that has a marginal risk tomorrow. Now you continue to progress forward. We're probably going to have some thunderstorms into Sunday too, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a marginal risk somewhere in this area. But as we progress fully into Monday, this trough begins to amplify. You start to see more blue on your screen up here. So flow's just kind of going just like this. Okay. All right. So there's going to be some sort of boundary, somewhere up into here separating warm, moist air and then cooler, drier. Well, not necessarily dry, but just cooler, more stable air. So where's that boundary set up? Right now, they're thinking the highest chance of severe weather is going to be into here. Remember, you don't always look. This is at 500 millibars, so it doesn't tell us everything that's going on the surface, but you can tell the general pattern, and we got basically some sort of storm system right into here that's going to drive our weather pattern later into the weekend, into a good chunk of early next week, this upper trough. And this trough begins to amplify even more. Now you get into Tuesday, it brings another shot of cold air into areas of the Great Lakes region, to the Northeast, unfortunately. So if you're not a cold weather fan, this is going to bring another shot of cooler air across all of the eastern U.S., I think. Now, how cool, not quite sure, but this moves in, moves out, and, we might end up getting another shot after that. So we're just not quite done with getting these cold fronts, and we'll stop it right here. So here comes another storm system that could swing in. When these troughs did get out in the eastern U.S. like this, the flow normally does not support severe weather. We can get it, but, your flow is just kind of more so going like this, diving down out of the northwest to the southeast. That normally does not support severe weather. The reason it does not is because your flow, all those areas, those two areas I just drew, is quite literally pushing all the Gulf moisture and keeping it down here in the Gulf. So if the flow's going like this, nothing's getting pulled out the Gulf because it's working against it. Now, you get the flow working back like this, then severe weather will return because you're going to get that warm Gulf moisture getting pulled back north. So that's why, and I feel like a lot of people did a really good job of calling this early on. We were always kind of expecting kind of a lull in severe weather activity mid-month. But, if you look at what this looks like reflected to the surface, and we start off Saturday morning, there's kind of just some green popping up. Yeah, it's hard to see, but there's some showers and storms. Probably going to get some showers and storms, somewhere. And there's the 999 low associated with the low pressure, ejecting off that trough. But then here's the actual upper low up here. We're probably going to get some wet snow in the far upper Midwest portion of the country. We get into Monday afternoon, and there's some storms flaring up across the Ohio Valley and surrounding states. Okay, and then we start to get into Tuesday. Low swings up into eastern Canada. Just could continue to get some weather. We get into Wednesday morning. That system heads on out, and then we have another trough that digs down based off the Euro for next Friday. And then we get into Saturday, and we could have a storm system that impacts the eastern seaboard. And that could bring maybe some severe weather for areas of the southeast. And what stinks is I'm going to the beach. I'm supposed to be going to the beach next Saturday just for the day with the family, but that looks like some cold air diving down. So if this happens, I will not go to the beach in the 50s and 60s. So we just have to watch the pattern, guys. But looking forward, temperature-wise, because of this frequent troughing, dips in the jet stream across the eastern U.S. between now and probably the next 6 days, even though this reflects just a 6 to 10 day period, but we might as well say between now and the next 10 days. Yes, we'll have warm days across the eastern U.S., but we're going to have cold fronts, and this happens. I mean, there's nothing uncommon about this. So we're going to have these cold fronts that kind of keep everybody on average cooler across these blue areas of the eastern U.S. So this is where we have a chance at below average temperatures. But the middle of the country in western U.S. continues to look pretty warm. If we do go to the 8 to 14 day outlook, we start to get rid of the cooler air across the eastern U.S. and most of the country begins to get pretty warm. So as far as the return of severe weather, we'll start off a week from right now. So this is starting off next Friday morning. You notice these are dew points, okay? You notice that dew points are in the 20s, and this is the Euro Ensemble, 30s across a good chunk of the country. Most of that Gulf moisture is really suppressed to the south across the Gulf states. There's no big extension to the north of this feed of Gulf moist air. So we start to get into like day 10. This is getting pretty far out. The pattern begins to look like it supports the return of the moist sector up into the middle of the country. So, we start to get very far out, guys, and this is getting into the later portion of the month. We're getting 300 hours out. You start to see that moist air returning back north, just in general. Okay, so it does look like once you get past day 7 and 10, moist air on average begins to kind of surge back north. This introduces, favorable thermodynamics for the return of severe weather. Now, one thing we don't have a clue on is if there's going to be storm systems. But starting a week from today, you can see once again that the main flow is going just like this. Not a great color. Main flow is going just like this. It's dipping down across the eastern U.S. and middle of the country. That does not support severe weather, which is good. This is why the middle of the month looks pretty stable as far as severe weather, besides a couple of marginal, maybe slight risk days at most. But you get this flow coming out the northwest out of here, and then you get the return. It's not much, but you begin to get the return. You see how the wind barbs are kind of pointing to the southwest? That means your flow is coming out the southwest. So we start to get the flow, more of a zonal look right here, but we start to get the flow coming out more so out the southwest. So that means the storm systems are going to start scooting across the middle of the country. Low pressures, this will begin to pull up that warm, moist air from the south. And what we have to see, there's not a strong signal for that flow returning like this, but we get a little bit further out, there's a much stronger signal for it that begins to get going, where it looks like, you're getting an avenue of energy that's going just like this. This will bring severe weather back into the picture, and I think it will return by the end of the month. But let's just enjoy the break that we have for now. So, all right, so just gonna read some scripture in our Bible devotion this morning. Been really enjoying doing this, by the way, guys, and I appreciate the real positive feedback. Not every one of these is going to be crisp and nice. Of course, they're not going to be perfect. Nothing is, but do appreciate you following along as we been adding these to the video. So this morning we're in James chapter 2, verse 14, and I think I'm going to go through verse 17. So James chapter 2, verse 14 through 17. So it says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but does not have works? Can such faith save him? If a brother or sister is without clothes and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, stay warm and be well fed,' but you don't give them what the body needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith, if it doesn't have works, is dead by itself." So, I think a lot of people have probably heard that saying, faith without works is dead, and I 100% back it. I mean, obviously it says it in scripture, so I do, but I think it's one of those things that steps on some people's toes also, and I think it's a good stepping on your toes, if you will. I think one of the smaller scale versions of this is, when a lot of people shoot off their hips saying something like, yeah, I'll pray for you, buddy, I'll pray over you, and you never end up doing it. And I think we've all done that. I've done it. I certainly am not ashamed to admit it. But I've certainly, over the last few years, one thing that I do is when I say I'm going to pray over you, I'll stop right there and pray, or I'll step away and do it, or sometimes I'm just chilling at my desk at work and I'll close my eyes for a minute. So I think that that's very important, and that's just a small example of it. Be genuine with that kind of stuff. A lot of people, I'm just going to relate it to weather, because obviously this is a channel where we talk about the weather. A lot of people in the weather community and stuff like that will say, we need to pray over all these severe weather victims, people in the impact zone. Or, are you really praying over them? That would be my thing, and that's a challenge not just to, from me to you guys, but from, it's a challenge to myself also. So that's just a smaller version of it, guys. But also, what are you doing to, help others? What resources do you have? And it kind of goes back to that thing that I always kind of nail down, right? What is your gift? What are you utilizing it to, help others, to help others? And, if you're just kind of leaving it on the table and not bringing it out in the world, then, what's the point of having it? It's a waste, honestly. So sometimes, your way of really helping others is giving your time. Sometimes it's giving your money. Some people are blessed and financially. But if you're being stingy with everything and with all that, and there's many other things too. That's just the first two things I think of, sometimes you're called to you feel a strong push to give money to somebody on the side of the road that, is asking for money. Sometimes I get those pushes, and then other times I do not. But that, I think that all kind of intertwines with having a solid relationship with Christ. He will speak with you. He'll speak through you. He'll speak to you, and he'll let you know when those opportunities, you need to, take a step of faith and really help others. So you got to put the faith in the work. You got to just do good things. Do the things that God is calling you to do. And listen, I mean, one thing that and I always like to relate things to my own life, but one thing that really rocked me to my core, and I'm gonna have to wrap this up quick. Got to get my kids to school. It's one of the early days. One of the things that rocked me to my core is, and it does every time, is when we have these school shootings. It kills me. It just nips a piece of me away, and it inspired me, and it really inspired me to do what I can, do what I think I'm good at, which is I think I'm really good with kids. And it inspired me to become a mentor at our local elementary school right up the road. I mean, it's like a 5-minute walking distance from us. It inspired me to become a mentor. And that's what inspired me, these school shootings. And, a lot of people, when these things happen, they, some of the people that might not be believers, and some people that are, they get sick of hearing, oh, well, let's pray over the situation, this, that, and the other. And listen, in a way, I don't blame them, because are you doing anything that you can do to maybe help the situation? I'm not saying that you're called to help that specific situation, but if there's a situation that that you can help get better, that is a big issue out there in the world, what can you maybe do in your community? What can you do in your community? That's huge. What can you do in your community? I'm not asking, how can you change the world? but how can you impact someone else's life, in a positive way? And to me, for example, with these school shootings and stuff like that, how can you be a positive influence in someone's life that doesn't have a good mother or father figure in their life? You never know whose life you're going to change. That person's life that you might be changing, might end up changing the world in the most beautiful way possible. So, I encourage you guys to be kind, to step out your comfort zone, be used by the Lord. Don't just listen to people's problems. Try to help them. See if you can help them. See if you got anything in that certain time situation that, that maybe can help them. Maybe you can give them something. Maybe you can just sit there and talk to them for 10 or 15 minutes. So hope that makes sense, guys. And the last thing, I encourage you guys to do good deeds without announcing it to the world. I mean, that's hard because everybody wants validation. We all find little small ways to seek validation. A healthy amount of seeking validation, I don't see the problem with it. When you want to announce you got a big award, you don't see a problem with that. Taking a picture of my 100,000 subscriber plaque, some people might view that as, you're seeking validation, but, stuff like that. But, if you do something phenomenal, awesome, somebody is watching you do it. More importantly, God is. You'll be blessed for it, but you don't have to announce it to the world. Just do good deeds kind of quietly. You know what I'm saying? So hope that makes sense. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I got to get going. Have a fantastic Friday, guys.